Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the changes that got added to Double Edge and Liquid Courage Mastery. And basically because somebody did ask exactly what changed to me in live stream, and it turned out to be a fairly long and somewhat complex answer. And then I'm still receiving messages about it and comments, so on and so forth. And I do get why a lot of people would be kind of like struggling to understand exactly what changed and how does that affect them, and whether it's a good change, whether it's a bad change. And that is exactly why I'm going to do my best in this video to explain exactly the difference of how Suicide Masteries will function now versus to how they used to function. And the base idea of it is fairly simple, that now these bleed debuffs will attempt to activate at the beginning of the fight even if the champions are immune, versus prior to this change, if your champion had an immunity to, let's say, bleed or poison, they would not even attempt to apply those debuffs and kind of like start the fight debuff free, basically. So obviously when the champion's immune, effectively in 99% of the cases it doesn't change anything. But we have some synergies and some nodes that do rely on this attempted activation and failing. Most recent ones would be the Guillotine 2099 one and Warlock one, where basically if a teammate would receive a debuff that they are immune to, they gain either a Fury buff or either a burst of power, and that is visible in nodes like Biohazard. If you're using a robot or an immune champion, you activate your immunity, that bleed tries to activate, doesn't, you get Fury or you get power or both if you run both synergies. So in this case that would be a positive change. It's a positive change because when you start the fight, before you did not get this power gain and you did not gain this Fury buff, and you would have to kind of try and trigger these debuffs in the fight while Biohazard or whatever, basically. Now you will start a fight with a Fury buff because, let's say, bleed will try to activate. Your immunity will prevent that bleed from activating, and this synergy will go to work and give you a Fury buff or give you a poison buff. And here is going to be an example. As we can see, we automatically start with a Fury buff, and we also gain some power. It is not as visible in this fight, therefore I will in a moment just quit this fight, bring in another robot to demonstrate that yes, the Fury buff is present, power is gained, and the synergy already triggered. Now before this update you would not receive this Fury buff and you would not receive this power gain, because these debuffs would not even attempt to activate, and therefore synergy would not even attempt to give those buffs to you. So that is the good change. And there are also negative impacts to that for players in nodes such as this coolant leak, when it basically states when a robotic attacker is immune to like bleed debuff, you gain incinerate instead. So prior you could go in this fight with Suicide's active, because these bleeds or poisons would not attempt to activate, you would not receive an incinerate debuff because of this node. But now when you enter a fight, Suicide's active, and if this node is present, you will automatically receive an incinerate debuff at the beginning of the fight, thus making the robot pretty much useless for the matter of fact. And that is the negative change. So again, before the update, you could enter this fight with Suicide Masteries active on your robot champion. Those debuffs would not even attempt to activate, therefore this node would not get triggered and you'd be perfectly fine. Now they do try to activate, your immunity triggers, and with that also the node activates and you receive an incinerate debuff immediately. We're going to go in with another champion to demonstrate, because this time I dashed back and there's caltrops involved, but this will show it a bit more clear. Either way, so this is clearly for worse when it comes to the people. So whenever you see a node like coolant leak, for instance, you are unable to run suicides with your robot champions, or you'll just lose a buttload of health. Obviously there are more nodes such as this and a few more interactions. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm aware of all of them because I'm only human, but the base idea is that there are some good applications for this and there are some bad applications for this change. As change itself, I would kind of characterize it as simply as it's no worse, it's no better, it's just different. There will be times when you love this change, when you enjoy some benefits because of it, and there will inevitably be times when it's going to hinder you, and when you're going to hate it, and when you're going to feel that you're punished because of this change. So again, it kind of depends on Kabam. In fact, it entirely depends on Kabam how this change will affect you now, because they can either A, make it so that we barely notice by not adding any synergies, nodes, benefits or penalties that would trigger because of this, and basically let us forget about this change to begin with these couple of examples as like a standalone cases. And yeah, if they don't do anything with it, we're just going to forget about it, and it's different, but it's not going to matter much. Obviously, they can start making more and more synergies, more and more abilities, and more rewards and effects that trigger and help you when you would be immune. And then pretty much all of the immune champions or robot champions or whatever could have an easy access to some benefits that they otherwise didn't, like in this Fury synergy example with Warlock, or Power Gain synergy example with Guillotine 2099. And if they want to, they can make it so that this is the best change ever, and we'll love it if you run suicides, because then you can get a lot of benefits from it, and you wouldn't have been able to otherwise prior to this update. So if they keep pumping out synergies like that, maybe some cool nodes, maybe some champion abilities, then obviously we're all gonna love it, right? And instance of Colossus, for instance, it's going to be useful for Colossus as well, because the bleed is going to attempt to trigger, and you can get an extra armor buff. So that's cool. And obviously they can keep making nodes like Coolant Leak and many others for any class champions or any group champions or in type champions, and completely destroy us because of it, and prevent us from running suicide masteries from beginning. And the fact that this change has come to be in itself is kind of an indication that Kabam has some sort of plans when it comes to regarding immunities and these debuff activations. So obviously nobody but Kabam knows exactly what is going to be the next step, but I think it's extremely unlikely that they actually kind of invested the time and effort to make this change if they didn't have some set plans where it's going to come into play and where it's going to come into effect. So I think the first option that we're not going to notice is the least likely one. It's either going to be beneficial or English is hard sometimes, guys. Honestly, English is hard. Either way, it's either going to be beneficial or it's going to be harmful to the players, depending on what Kabam wants to do. It can be both, obviously. It can be a fairly perfect balance in between both, where you have situations where it helps you and where you have situations where it hinders you. So yeah, but this is not that. This is not a conspiracy theory video, or this is not an attempt to slam Kabam, because we do not really have any proof or reason to as of right now. This video is purely meant to explain the difference of how suicide masteries function now versus how they used to function prior to this update. So there is a very simple key difference, that the debuffs do attempt to activate now, versus before they didn't even do that. They kind of saw that you're immune and they didn't even bother. So that is the only difference, and I did show like few applications where it comes into play, versus it can be beneficial and it can be harmful to you. Right? So as a change in itself, it's neither good or bad. It's just different. And only time and Kabam's futures actions will actually let us look back at this moment and realize whether it was a good change, whether it was a bad change, and how it has and will have had impacted us. But yeah, that will pretty much do for today, I believe. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I did try my best to kind of keep it slow and simple in order to make sure that as many of you can understand me as well as I possibly can explain this. And hopefully it did make things more clear for you. And if it indeed did help you to understand how suicide masteries have changed now and what exactly has changed about them, and help you understand how some of these applications do work and will work in future, then definitely do not hesitate to share this video with your friends, with your alliance mates, with anybody who is unsure, or whoever else might benefit from this information in your opinion. But all that being said, that will be me done rambling for now. Again, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all of the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon with my next video. But that's me done today. See ya.